Let's go back to that Flash game video. The tragic death of Flash games by Nation Squid. Let's have a look.
Whenever a groundbreaking technology is discovered, our first
We love Windows XP. The first computer I ever used was a Windows XP system.
instinct is to see how far it can go and how it can serve the world to its max.
What do we have here? UFC 67. Oh, God. UFC 67. Rock Your Face, Adult Swim, NHL Saves of the Week. Okay, nothing else that crazy.
Of course,
I missed
the
this
internet
layout.
was certainly no exception. The technological feat of getting computers on other sides of the world to instantly communicate with one another was revolutionary on its own. However, the online infrastructure of the 1990s focused on primitive means of communication.
Do they just not want to... Whoever made this video, not the video of this screen, not want there to be an ad for this monitor?
Primarily just getting images and text to appear on a screen. It was suitable for its time, but quite limiting. The technology wasn't exactly there yet, but we knew things could go even further. Well, in 1996, the solution to this problem would appear in the form of a product that we know today as Flash Player, or later on, as Adobe Flash Player.
I wonder if he's going to get into Microsoft's solution. What was it? It's not Silverblue. Microsoft Flash competitor. Silverlight. Yeah. I wonder if that's going to come up.
Computer, free of charge, and you could now see the internet as it was truly meant to be seen. Interactive websites, video games. In an abstract way, the World Wide Web just got so much more three-dimensional. Naturally.
There were so many sites that didn't need to be Flash Player sites. I remember as a kid, there was this information. I think it was something about some animal, gorillas or something like that. And the entire site was in Flash. So you couldn't copy any of the text off the site. There was no reason it needed to be a Flash site, but it just was. I don't miss that. But there is a part of me that does miss Flash Player for other things.
Flash Player became the standard for web browsing over the next decade, and for reasons we will explore in this video, met its timely death in 2020. But not only do I find the rise and fall of this beloved program interesting, but also the legacy it has left behind, or lack thereof. You see, the discontinuation of Flash...
How's the audio level, by the way?
...has left a lot of old websites and online games completely dead. Yes, there are now Flash alternatives that have come in to pick up the pieces, but they are exactly...
Ruffle is really good.
Exactly that. Just pieces. They still do run into many problems and often struggle to operate in the same way. Having this media move over to its successor, HTML5, just isn't that easy.
How's that?
And often requires rewriting a lot of resources. As a result, many Flash games and projects have now become lost media. A personal example of mine was...
There actually is there is a project that exists where it just bundles the Flash Player with a desktop application, and you can just keep playing old Flash games with it. And you should be able to load these old Flash sites as well.
Coraline.com. Back when the movie was first released in 2009, the Coraline website was a fully interactive other world full of games, scavenger hunts, even a photo editor where you could add buttons to your eyes. Sadly, its snapshots on the Wayback Machine are just not enough for the game to be perfectly emulated, and therefore, only the homepage exists. It is now lost. The reasons for this are technological as well as cultural. It's also that the internet collectively just doesn't really care for Flash media anymore. And you could argue that this transition is indicative of a new attitude the internet has developed. We've almost come full circle in that websites are returning to more static environments that prioritize communication.
Yeah, There's a part of me that really does not like the way that modern sites are designed. Like, yes, this era was weird. People didn't really know what they were doing. They just kind of threw everything together. but there was something fun about it. There's just like a kind of fun that is just not there with the web today.
Over aesthetics, but it's also indirectly at the expense of preserving an entire era of online history.
Yep.
Because there is such a huge barrier to entry
Minimalism.
for Flash media to continue.
It's sad, so much less personality from websites these days. Absolutely. There are so many sites that are basically the exact same thing, and the problem is when sites do want to have personality, it just feels weird because they're trying to like do personality in a minimal way. Take the way that Apple's site works, where it's just scroll through like the iPhone page and you'll see exactly what I mean.
Existing in the modern world, we are often unable to properly observe it in retrospect. It almost feels like a digital burning of a library, and I don't think it needs to be that way. So what is the story of Flash Player, and how can we keep it frozen in time rather than lost to it? We first have to understand what Flash Player's role was in the development of the internet. The internet as a whole is a very basic concept. It is a large number of computers that are all connected together so that they can, of course, all communicate to each other. But you must express this communication.
Interconnect, you might say. The old official Gundam website had a model RX-78 flying around in a banner, clicking fired bullets. RX-78 just keeps dodging your shots. Oh, that's cool.
In a way humans can understand. Just like how the telegraph turned arbitrary pulses of electricity into Morse code, computers on a network do the same thing, but with binary. But the average Joe is not going to understand how to read binary or complicated computer code. Instead, this information should be expressed in a way that is clean, straightforward, and pretty to look at. So, a man named Tim Berners-Lee creates something called the World Wide Web in 1990. And now these electrical signals can be expressed.
This is not related to the main point, but what was it called? I think it's on, if we can find it on this Wikipedia page. Hold up. Here we go. Yeah, here it is. So, what the World Wide Web made by Tim Berners-Lee was actually written on NextStep. The operating system and the computer company that Steve Jobs went to go and make after being kicked out of Apple. This was also the operating system that had the first App Store, and also, I believe, Doom 2, and Quake were also written on Next machines as well. Random side tangent, but I thought I want to mention it anyway.
Through a language called the Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML for short. Now text, hyperlinks, and even images are what you see when you go online. The internet just got so much more inclusive, and you see its popularity explode throughout the decade.
Oh my god, what is what is this site? This is the most American thing I've ever seen.
As computer technology got better over the years,
isn't NextStep the base of what floating window systems are today? Not everything, but yes, a lot of what NextStep did sort of set the groundwork for things we interact with, like having a button in the top right to close a window or maximize a window, being able to resize a window by grabbing a corner. A lot of those things came directly from NextStep.
Demand for more internet functionality increased. Like, sure, AOL.com does look all snazzy and colorful, and it's got all
AOI?
the buttons
That's an I to me.
you need, but it feels a bit stiff, for lack of a better term. Perhaps if we could introduce some fluidity into the page, but aside from some cool-looking animations, HTML just wasn't advanced enough yet. The only way to create a website that was truly interactive, dynamic, was to create one that had an intimate connection with the computer's hardware, much like a computer program. But having one program for AOL, one for Yahoo, and another for Ask Jeeves all on your computer at once is a pain in the neck. Not to mention it would take up hard drive space. Instead, what if you only installed
That actually was a thing, by the way. There actually was a period of Java websites. It was a bad idea, but that did exist.
program that acted as a browser extension that automatically supported all these websites and the unique environment and configurations that they each had. And so, on January 1st, 1996, what we recognize today as Flash Player was released, specifically designed to answer this question. It was originally called Future Splash Player and was owned by Future Wave Software. Macromedia would acquire the product and rename it to, well, Flash Player.
Right.
But the premise of the program was overall the same. As long as you had this program on your...
My old Java class taught us how to insert Java applets into web pages. Yeah, that's still a thing in Java. I don't know of a single person who has actually used that in a very, very long time.
your computer, you could now see and use the internet in a whole new way. Websites featured cool sound effects, sophisticated animations you could directly interact with, and even video support. Not only that, it supported multiple operating systems, and it was free. Thanks to Flash Player, it now felt like the only limitation to the internet was just the screen.
Oh, God. Oh, what a different time.
It's me, Steven. Have you seen any packages? Apparently I have something special coming in the mail today.
This feels like an ad.
You have?
Is this ad time?
Well, come on in.
What has more letters than the alphabet? A post office.
Ha ha!
That's pretty funny, Mailbox.
You got mail.
Gee whiz. Thanks, Mailbox. Wonder what it is. We just got a letter. We just got a letter.
Jesus
we just
Christ.
Got a letter. We
Jesus
just got a letter.
fucking Christ.
It's from Payne and Prescott LLP from Oxnard. Sounds professional. Dear Steven, if you are reading this, that means I've already packed my stuff and left. My attorney is writing to you on my behalf. If only you spent less time golfing and visiting your sister in Scottsdale and more time being a good husband. I don't even know. Don't worry, kids. This is a playful joke that Jennifer and I like to play. Is that a hearing date on the bottom? Oh, she's divorcing me. Cool.
I used to do all that show. My sister did. I definitely heard a lot of it. I didn't watch it, though.
Why is this even here? This is a studio set. It's not a real mailbox. Maybe it was just some sort of mix-up.
I've actually got more mail for you, Steven.
Oh, really, Mailbox? I noticed there was no joke this time, Mailbox. Is this the Pete Best autograph from Liverpool that you got lost in transit for a second time? How much was that? 100 pounds? Am I the joke? Is that the joke, Mailbox? Because if it is, look at me. Ha ha ha! So funny! It's actually so much better. It's Bombas. Today's sponsor.
Yeah, there's the ad. I knew the ad had to happen eventually.
Bombas provides amazing socks, slippers, undergarments, and much more. It's also the perfect gift for that one person you just don't know what to get them for the holidays. It's also a
gift
great
cards
gift for you. Why not indulge just a little bit? I got the chunk rag calf socks and men's Sunday slippers. Let me tell you, these things are so comfortable. I just never want to take them off. I love the way I feel and look in these socks and slippers. I even got some for you, Aqua.
What an ad read this
Go,
is.
Fetch. Wait, no, Aqua, don't go.
What an ad read this is.
Thankfully, Bombas has a 100% happiness guarantee and offers free returns and exchanges, even if the socks are damaged. Bombas also works with a mission in mind. For every purchase, they donate one of their top 3 most popular items to people experiencing homelessness. Their customers have helped donate over 150 million items to those in need.
Wow.
That's quite amazing, honestly. So, President Ronald Reagan passed a law where now I can advertise to kids. So if you take mommy and daddy's credit card,
Okay, this is one of the best ad reads I've ever seen.
16 numbers on the front, you can cut. By visiting bombas.com/nationsquid or using NationSquid at checkout, new customers will get 20% off their purchase. Thank you to Bombas for sponsoring
That
this
was a
video.
great ad read.
So how does the program work?
I love that.
It's remarkably simple. A website would host something called a SWF file. This was a small file that contained graphics, animations, and any type of supported media, accompanied with instructions for the computer on how to show them. When a user visited this website, Flash Player would take this SWF file, read these instructions, and then show all these elements on the screen as it was intended. It essentially acted as an add-on to HTML to enhance the online experience.
Oh, God. Oh, right. Sorcerer's Stone. This is the US website.
What was revolutionary was the fact that these SWF files were so small. This is because Flash Player primarily used vector graphics, which are images made up of colors and shapes, rather than bitmap ones, which are made up of predefined pixels. Vectors have the advantage of not losing quality when they are upscaled, and they also take up less data than bitmap images do. Given that internet
At the cost of computation.
bandwidth in the 90s was very limited, this was a huge benefit for Flash Player and made using it so easy. So, Flash Player became super popular and basically dominated the internet over the next decade. Newgrounds, Poptropica, iCarly, Total Jerkface, and even YouTube were all entirely Flash. Total Jerkface.
Oh God, look at this! Look at this game!
And even YouTube were all entirely Flash dependent, and included things like Easter eggs and even full-on video games. With Flash, you could create pretty much anything you wanted, and it could be argued that its presence was what created the very apparent customizability culture that existed in the 2000s and extended out into other forms like CS.
What is... Wait.
That existed.
What is this Taylor Swift website? Holy shit! This is not something you would ever see today. That is wild. Top of the morning to you, laddies. My name is Jacksepticeye. Welcome back to Happy Wheels. I don't recognize her. MySpace.
In the 2000s.
You love MySpace.
And extended out into other forms like CSS, MySpace.
Remember when YouTube let you customize your entire background of your channel? Oh God. I remember doing this to a really early channel I had. Oh man. Wait, Fred only had... Wait, he only had 1 million subs back then? Like, obviously, like, that's... Sure, 1 million subs is a lot, but like... I thought Fred was so much bigger than that. I guess YouTube was so much smaller back then.
Pages and YouTube channels. It was your whole entire personality.
Wait, do we have when the... Channels. Okay, we can't see, like, when the video was.
It was your whole entire personality on a web page. You could truly be you. But there was one big issue with all of this. Security. For Flash Player to really have the versatility that it did, it also needed to have a lot of privileged access to your computer's system. After all, for Flash Player to operate to the best of its ability, it would first...
If they released this today, half the internet would have a crypto miner? Yes. Yes. You are 100% correct.
First need to know what kind of hardware you're using and what kind of system configurations you have put in place, much like a computer program would. But you know what else behaves this way? Malware. While Flash Player has good intentions with what it does to deep parts of your system, nefarious users don't. Malware developers were soon discovering all kinds of exploits within the Flash program. And well...
And back then, we didn't really have browsers being sandboxed like we do now. So, yeah. Especially early on.
The vast majority of internet users with this program on their computer, it is a recipe for disaster. Now you're probably wondering why they would design a program this haphazardly. Well, the answer, surprisingly, is that it was the 90s and people just didn't care that much about security. The creators of Flash just wanted a product out as soon as possible, before any possible competition could come in. It was almost like an arms race. They wanted something that could effectively work as it was intended to, and they took any means necessary to make that happen. And that included granting the program elevated privileges within the computer. It just wasn't designed with safety in mind, but it was suitable for the time. But as computer viruses started becoming very common throughout the 90s and 2000s, many of which even involved finding exploits within Flash, people became more aware of this issue. So naturally, Flash started becoming one of those programs that you would have to update like 3 times a week. and that got annoying. But because it was still, by far, the most capable thing of its time, it was a risk people were willing to take. Heck, in 2005, Adobe purchased Flash Player from Macromedia, and so it then became Adobe Flash Player. It was still...
I got very I don't remember it being that annoying, but I guess I was a child back then, so I just don't remember it that much.
Very much popular and even omnipresent within the online...
Oh, right, they're talking about Intel-based Macs because this was during the transition from PowerPC back to Intel. Right, I forgot that happened.
Space. In fact, you couldn't even use YouTube without it. Humanity has taught us that people don't really care about the risk of Trojan horses until one shows up on their computer. And this kind of devil-may-care mindset would ultimately catch up to them. Steve Jobs, in particular, despised Adobe Flash Player, and that alone essentially marked the beginning of the end for the program. You see, in 2007, a little thing called the iPhone was invented, and Jobs made sure that Flash Player didn't touch iOS with a 10-foot pole. In fact, he even wrote an open letter about his disdain for the product, which garnered a lot of...
Apple has a long relationship with Adobe. In fact, we met Adobe's founder. Apple invested in Adobe and owned around 20% of the company many years ago. Two companies worked closely together to pioneer desktop publishing. Okay. I wanted to jot down some of my thoughts on Adobe Flash products so that customers and critics may better understand why we do not allow Flash on iPhones, iPods, and iPads. Adobe has characterized our decision as being primarily business-driven. They say we want to protect our app store. That is definitely true. That is a big reason why they did it. But in reality, it is based on technology issues. Adobe claims that we are a closed system and that Flash is open. But in fact, the opposite is true. No, you're both closed. Wait, what are you talking about, Jobs? No, you're both proprietary. Shut the fuck up. Apple Flash products are 100% proprietary. They're only available from Adobe. Adobe Flash products are 100% proprietary. They're only available from Adobe. While Adobe's Flash products are widely available, this does not mean they are open, since they're controlled entirely by Adobe and are only available from Adobe. By almost any definition, Flash is a closed system. That's also true about you.
Controversy.
You
One criticism he made was that Adobe Flash Player was proprietary, meaning that the quality of the product, all the
Apple's entire business is built off being closed. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Patches and updates were all fully in control by Adobe. They were the ones who called this...
It's open because it uses HTML and JavaScript. That was where it was going.
Shots at the end of the day. So the question was, why is pretty much the entirety of the internet being controlled by only one company? And according to Jobs, they weren't even doing a very good job at it, as the software company Symantec listed Flash as having one of the worst security records of 2009. Although Flash Player was free, the tools for creating these Flash projects were not, which Adobe continued to provide as part of their own ecosystem even after acquiring it from Macromedia. So the prevalent argument at that time was, does Adobe truly have the best interests of the internet in mind?
Wow, it's almost like we're talking about the exact same things today with Photoshop and Premiere. Nothing changes.
Or did they just want to make more money? Jobs also said that Flash was not touch-friendly. It was designed at a time where you could only click and drag with a mouse. Adobe started working on a smartphone-friendly version of the program, but it just never really took off at all. Jobs also cited Flash Player as being very draining on the iPhone's battery, among a bunch of
I can imagine that.
Instead, iPhone, iPads, and iPods used a newer video codec called H.264. And with all these websites having free app equivalents to them, mobile users were able to survive just fine without Flash Player.
Yeah, apps are what killed Flash Player.
Was very controversial and led to a lot of drama between Adobe and Apple. Over the next decade, mobile devices and tablets would explode in popularity, even surpassing desktop and laptop PCs in terms of market share. So, of course, the demand for Flash Player was dwindling. And then came the final nail in the coffin.
Did any early Android versions have Flash support? That is a good question. I start typing, did Android support? And the first response is Israel. I don't even want to know what Israel and Android have to do with each other. Apparently, until 2012, it was supported on Android. But also remember, the iPhone was so much bigger back then as well. Like, market share was entirely iOS. Like, there was a period where Android just was bad. Like, people did not like Android.
Then, since the vulnerability issue...
It's still, obviously, iOS is still massive, but now it's more regional dependent. In the US, iOS is by far the biggest, but I believe worldwide, Android has more market share.
With Flash Player wasn't exactly improving, even with all the continuous updates. All the world's leading tech companies decided to get together. They basically formed a committee that was going to create a technology for the internet that was even more capable than Flash Player and specifically had security in mind. This would be a markup language known as HTML.
I believe the common consensus is Android was unusable until Jelly Bean released. When was Jelly Bean? Because I use Android. I probably used it before then. But that's only because my parents did not have the money to buy Apple devices. Oh, yeah. 4.1. Yeah, no, that was a nice version. Yeah. Far out.
HTML5. It supported video, graphics, just about everything Flash could already do, but this time, it was actually part of your web browser rather than being a third-party program installed on your computer. It was safer, faster, and even used less power. It also wasn't controlled by only one company. Instead, this committee, pretty much democratically, would vote on decisions that should or shouldn't be made for the language.
Unless your name's Google, in which case you have a lot of sway over the committee.
Over time, websites started to ditch Adobe Flash Player in favor of HTML5. It was a rather slow death, but Flash Player would then lose all support and be shut down permanently on December 31st, 2020. But unfortunately, just switching over to HTML5
I didn't realize it lasted that long.
From Flash isn't as easy as it sounds and is very case by case. So a lot of these websites died with it. Sure, there are emulators such as Ruffle that work pretty well, but it isn't perfect. Flash Player was proprietary after all. It's not going to get everything to work, and it often doesn't. Heck, there is even a website that hosts a download for the last version of Adobe Flash Player that you can install on your PC. But since this is now unsupported software, this isn't exactly safe, and unfortunately, you often still run into the same problem of just not getting these old web games to load. But if you dig deep enough into the page source of the website and download the SWF file from there and try running it directly from your computer, whether through Ruffle or this copy of Flash Player, that theoretically can work. But again, sometimes it just doesn't, and there could be a million reasons. The most prominent one that I've noticed is that archive sites such as the Wayback Machine doesn't always save everything.
Yeah, it's mostly good, but especially with like images and stuff and videos, like you will see a lot of cases where things don't get saved. I would not be surprised if there are a lot of sites where the SWFs don't get saved either.
To go back to the Coraline.com example, it appears that the Wayback Machine has only saved certain snippets of this app. I can view the homepage just fine, exactly how it looked when I first saw it back in 2009. But I can't go beyond that.
Wait, Blu-ray was around back in... When did Blu-ray come out? Wait, is Blu-ray that old? 2006. Right, of course, the PS3 was a Blu-ray player. What the fuck? Okay. Sorry, I just... I just realized how old I was.
And the one Flash file that I did find didn't do anything when I tried to load it. Keep in mind, many Flash games used multiple SWF files, so if the archive didn't catch all of those, then the game is sadly gone forever. It is lost media. This is a technological issue as well as a preservation issue. The average person is not going to know how to go into the page source of a website and download the Flash files and manually load them on their computer. it's a bit much. So now you have this barrier to entry for the majority of online users who want to access old Flash games and websites for research or historical purposes. And like we said, the demand for keeping these sites around has gone down. Who is going to spend hours playing a Flash game for a cult movie from 2009? Well, except me, but a lot of people aren't. And with the rise of...
Here's the thing, there's a lot of views. There's a surprising amount of views out there.
HTML5, mobile devices, and flat design, we are seeing the internet return to the minimalism approach, focusing less on aesthetics and more on just directly communicating what it's trying to say. And one of the consequences of that is these old Flash games not being archived properly. And truthfully, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. It kind of feels like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. If you find out that the art museum has asbestos in the walls, well, you move those paintings into a new building that doesn't have asbestos. You don't just burn the whole art museum down. And I feel like we did that, just a little bit. Of course, Flash Player is a security risk, but I feel like we could have figured out some way to
I'm sure you could have sandboxed it. You could have like built some like virtual machine system around it, and it would be fine.
Preserve these relics.
Oh, your system? Wait, he's a Linux user. Hold up, based.
Of the past, rather than just immediately flipping the switch off. That could be through reverse engineering certain Flash games that may not switch over to HTML5 as easily, and finding the reasons for why and resolving them. Or even through creating whole communities dedicated to finding and saving these games before they were lost entirely. Perhaps it's not too late, and we just have to keep looking. And we could at least save what we still do have. Because after all, progress involves observing things as they once were, and figuring out how we can do it better. But did you know that you don't need Adobe Flash Player to support me on Patreon?
That was a good video. I like that. I knew most of the history of Flash Player already, but most of that, I think, was fairly interesting. What's wrong with the honor system? It works most of the time. Why with all the security? You're a moron. You're a moron. The answer is malware. The answer is you go to a website, it automatically runs malware. That's the reason why. You don't build an honor system for software. Literally any software engineer is going to tell you, do not trust the user. Assume every user is malicious. Because it's probably true.